This is a story I started reporting 14 months ago, and it's kind of amazing that it's coming to an end. But I want to emphasize too that the story doesn't end for 1,500 other families who are still waiting and hoping that their loved ones might be found in Vietnam and Southeast Asia. My name is Josh Alvarez. I'm a senior writer for Texas Monthly, and I wrote The Final Flight of Captain Forrester. So this story began in February 2024 when my editor told me about this celebration of life happening for this Marine from Odessa who went missing in Vietnam in 1972, and his remains were only just recovered. So at first I thought that this was going to be a scene piece, would pretty much just go on the website. But as I talked to Karenny about the search for her father, Ron, and all of the people and resources involved in finding him, I knew that this couldn't just be a short scene piece. Ron Forrester was born in Odessa, and his whole dream growing up was to be a pilot. When Vietnam broke out, he was determined to go fight there. Ron joined the Marines and trained as a bomber navigator for an A-6 fighter jet. Night missions especially were very risky. And that's exactly the kind of mission that Ron was flying on December 27th, 1972. Karenny, his daughter, had just turned 2 years old when Ron disappeared. And then exactly 1 month after Ron disappeared, the Vietnam War ends. The Paris Peace Accords are signed on January 27th, 1973. Karenny's living with her maternal grandparents in Odessa, and they noticed some strange charges showing up on their phone bill. They figured out that what was going on was Karenny, when nobody was looking, was going to their phone and picking it up and dialing random numbers. And whoever would answer, she would try to ask that person if they'd seen her dad or if she could get connected to her dad. So it's just this 2-year-old girl already searching for her father. And that would become the mission that Karenny would embark on for the rest of her life. This story is about a daughter's search for her father, and it's about her journey to finding the answers about his fate, but also the journey that thousands of others like her have had to undertake to go find their own answers too. A whole generation of Americans have grown up without a father or a brother or uncles or a grandparent, and for many of them have never gotten an answer about exactly what happened to them. So Karenny ends up joining the National League of POW MIA families, and she becomes this very well-known advocate. It was remarkable in my reporting, whenever I was in settings with a lot of other families, how many of them know who she is, and how many consider her a friend. Karenny has just a great sense of humor, but she will hold officials, including men in uniform, to a very high standard. She is not afraid to look these guys down, including people who are very high-ranking officials, and say you're not doing enough, that you need to do better.
If something doesn't make sense, you don't have all the information. Keep asking questions. If you don't get it, it's because you're missing information.
Over the course of my reporting, traveled thousands of miles, pored over countless pages of documents. They disappeared, they're missing, they're lost, but what happened to them? There was a strong sense in the community that this was the person that people were rooting for, that after all the years that she spent helping other families get their answers, it was about time that she got hers. Follow Karenny's journey to finding her father on the new podcast from Texas Monthly, The Final Flight of Captain Forrester. And you can read the story at texasmonthly.com.